Dame Diana Rigg is 81 years old and she's still a beautiful woman. When I met her in London, she sailed gracefully into the room, all elegance, high cheekbones, and a playful smile that suggested that she didn't really take any of this showbiz lark to heart. Of course, a look at her CV soon puts the lie to that. As Emma Peel in the Avengers, she launched 1 million or more male fantasies. In Her Majesty's Secret Service, she played the only Bond girl who got to marry 007. And more recently, she's been enthralling a new generation of fans with her appearances in Game of Thrones. I wondered, after a career of almost 60 years, did she still enjoy performing, especially filming? Diana, I wasn't at an evening with Dame Diana back in March. I'd love to have been there, but I think had I been there, I would have wanted a weekend with you, because you've crammed an awful lot in, haven't you?
I have.
Do you still enjoy filming?
Oh, I love, not just filming, but work. I just love it. And it is the best job in the world because it engages your mind, your emotions, and your body.
Let's take a look at some of the things you've been doing over the past 60 years plus, maybe.
Yeah, but I have also crammed the world in because I have travelled the world. And I don't often talk about this, but I have been to the Galapagos Islands. I've been to the Andaman Islands. Do you remember reading in the newspaper not so very long ago, on the far southernmost island, a missionary had arrived in a boat and he was killed with poisoned arrows? Well, I was there 10 years ago, not obviously at the southernmost island, but in the Andaman Islands, which were quite extraordinary. And I travel the world as well because I'm so curious about other people and other cultures and their language. And I read several books about the country before I go there. And it is such a pleasure to me, the wide world.
Well, you started young enough because your father lifted you from Yorkshire, took you to India.
Yeah.
What age were you then?
I went out when I was 2 months old and I stayed till I was 7.
And then presumably you were sent to boarding school.
Yes, I was. At 7. I was a baby. Yes. I mean, my brother was at boarding school in Yorkshire. I was at boarding school in Buckinghamshire. My nearest relation was my grandmother, and she was in Doncaster. I had no one to turn to if I was miserable, so I had to get on with it.
In 1959, Royal Shakespeare Company, you were in the company of some real thespian heavyweights, I imagine, in those days.
Magic. Absolute magic. I mean, the roll call was Charles Laughton as Lear, Paul Robeson as Othello, Olivier as Coriolanus, Dame Edith as his mother, Volumnia. It was just astonishing.
And Diana Rigg carrying a spear.
Oh, yes, I was.
Literally.
I did carry a spear, yes, to my shame.
Looking back at particularly the men at the RSC in those days, you have made the point that they weren't, quote, posh boys.
No.
Like some of the actors are these days.
Well, I hate that kind of battle. I mean, it's utterly pointless and ridiculous. You don't get there unless you're good, regardless of your background. You've got to be good.
Well, you see, I'm looking now at a dame of the British Empire and thinking about Maggie Smith and thinking about Judi Dench and Helen Mirren. Quite a few dames from the theatre. Is there a sisterhood? Do you meet up every month and have coffee?
Well, I think Judy and Maggie are close because they did a film together a long time ago. But I'm not a thespian in my private life. I'm a person.
I don't see your picture in the glossies at the premieres and parties.
No, I don't do that. I don't do red carpet. I'm not. I can't be bothered to scrub up on a Sunday, frankly.
Your training in the RSC must have stood you in good stead in later years.
Oh, yes, it was the best.
What do you remember in particular learning there?
Just watching the best at it. It was wonderful. I mean, I promise you, I think that is the best way to learn. Night in, night out, listening to Olivier and watching him. And other actors as well. I mean, the Royal Shakespeare had the most wonderful character actors. Ian Holm, for example, he was a character actor in those days before he became a lead. And the Irish actors, Jackie McGowan, Norman Rodway, I mean, I've worked with so many of your brilliant Irish actors.
What need one?
Oh, reason not the need! Our basest beggars are and the poorest things superfluous. Allow not nature more than nature needs. Man's life's as cheap as beasts. Thou art a lady. If only to go warm where gorgeous, why nature needs wealth, but thou gorgeous worst, which scarcely keeps thee warm. But for true need, oh heavens, give me that patience.
You also then played with Laurence Olivier in King Lear. You played Regan, as I recall.
Yeah.
How long afterwards was that?
Oh, that was quite a long time. Yes, he was at the end of his days, and he'd never played Lear on stage, and he wanted to play it before he died. So Michael Elliott, the director, and he got together to do it on television, and he desperately wanted to do all those wonderful speeches as 'twere on stage. In other words, do them in one, not cut them up as you would on film, for example. And he just couldn't quite do it. And it was heartbreaking because he was trying so hard to get through those speeches, but he'd always forget, somewhere through one of them. You watched him beating himself up about it, but he couldn't do it.
The stage leaves an actor vulnerable in a way that cinema would never do, or television would never do. You can't just stop and retake the scene, can you?
No, you can't. No, it's very hard, and courage is required, and it's not a word which is often attached to actors and actresses. I go and see plays from time to time, and I am struck by how courageous they are.
This weekend with Dame Diana Rigg, and I think we'll have to take another night now and move on to 1965, The Avengers.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about your audition. It had been two men playing the leads, Ian Henry and Patrick McNee. Then Honour, and you auditioned in 65.
Yeah, well, you're telling me something I've long forgotten.
What was your audition? What did it consist of?
Oh, I had a scene with Patrick, and then I had to do a bit of fighting with the fight arranger called Roy Austin. Poor man. I had to batter him with a handbag, I seem to remember. And it wasn't just me auditioning, of course. It was a lot of other actresses, and each one was more desperate than the last to get the job. And so poor Roy was being battered to pieces by these actresses.
Each one harder than the previous
Each one, exactly, yeah. Anyway, I was quite cool about it, actually. I hadn't seen it. I'd got no idea what I was getting into. I didn't have a television. I remember it was lunchtime, and I had a friend who lived nearby. We got together for lunch, and when I got back in the studio, it was in turmoil because they'd been looking for me for a long time. Anyway, I did my piece, and then they told me I'd got it, and then suddenly the hoo-ha started.
What age were you then, Diane?
I was about 24, 25. I'm not really good at pressing rewind.
65,
But
I think 24 probably.
Yeah.
Yes. Young enough to appreciate it, but young enough not to care too much, I suppose.
Yes, really. I didn't know what I was getting into.
Well, a generation of gentlemen did, because they still have fond memories of this, this leather clad.
Well, I know. I've got these very old gentlemen coming up to me saying, I've admired you ever since I was a boy. I want to slap them.
Tell me about the trousers. I believe you had to get them made in a gentleman's outfitters.
No, I did that by choice.
Oh, did you?
Yes, absolutely, because the trousers on the rack for women in those days were absolutely appalling.
And women didn't wear trousers a lot.
Very few of them, indeed. I was turned away from a restaurant for wearing trousers once.
Even while you were in the Avengers?
Oh, yes. Oh, in those days, things have changed a lot. In the really posh restaurants, they had rules about what women wore.
And the leather gear.
Oh, that was dreadful.
In what way?
Well, everybody thought it was hugely glamorous and everything, but getting in and out, if nowadays leather is lined. Mine wasn't lined, so it was terribly sticky and awful to get in and out of.
You had a lot of fans in those days. You still have a lot of fans, but I suppose in those days the fans were slightly more vociferous and they wanted a piece of you, didn't they?
Well, yeah, but my mother used to answer my fan mail. Whenever she got a letter from a sort of overzealous young man, she'd write back and say, my daughter's far too old for you. Or stuff like, what you need is a good run round the block.
A cold shower, presumably. America then took the series up. And I'm thinking, I can't really recall a British television series of this ilk before that was taken up in this way by the States.
Yeah, that
Avengers
was very
probably the
exciting.
first.
Yeah, I did change certain things. I mean, I remember I had to do a belly dance, and I wasn't allowed to show my navel on American television. So I had to stick a jewel in there.
And that passed the censor in America, did it?
Then it was okay.
And why did you leave the series?
Oh, enough dead bodies. You know, there is more to an acting career. I think I'd done a year of the Avengers, and I went back to the RSC to say thank you, and I can now put bums on seats. I did Twelfth Night.
But when you're performing Cordelia or Regan or any of the roles in Shakespeare, you are bound by the bard's words. You don't ad-lib Shakespeare.
No.
So were you not restricted to that extent, having played the Avengers and been able to do your own thing to a certain extent?
You see, it's interesting because I played a nun in Ireland. And I talked to them in the convent and talked to them about their lives and what we see as the restriction of their lives. And they all say we have infinite freedom in our lives. Despite what you see as the discipline, we have infinite freedom. And it's the same with Shakespeare. You have to observe the discipline of the verse, but within that you have infinite freedom. So the same thing applies.
In the interpretation of the words, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just looking at your career, the first thing that strikes me is the variety of the parts that you've played. For instance, from Emma Peel, a light, frothy, sexy Avenger in leather trousers, to Medea, Euripides, 2,500 years old, and yet you go across to America, 1992, was it? 90s anyway, and you picked up a Tony Award for that, did you not?
I did.
Yes.
It was the best history of what should happen. We started so small and very, very modestly at the Almeida in Islington, and then producers were sort of frightened to pick it up, so nobody did. And Jonathan Kent, to whom I owe a very great deal, he was the director, we got together and I remember saying to him, I think there's more life to Medea. I think there's definitely more life. So we approached Bill Kenwright, who very bravely decided to put it on again. We toured England and then went into the West End and were sellout there. And then suddenly we moved over to Broadway. And it was absolutely wonderful that this old, very old play should be a hot ticket on Broadway. And so much so that I wanted to put his name, Euripides, I wanted it up in lights on Broadway. And I said to the producers, the American producers, can we please do that? Wouldn't it be wonderful? And they said, no, it'll put the public off. And I said, well, I'll pay for it. And they said, no, it'll put the public off. So it never happened.
Medea, who was Jason's wife, and spurred on by revenge,
yes,
a dark character, and they seem to pop up in your career along the way. Do you like playing?
Oh, they're far more interesting than the goody-goodies.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Why?
Well, they're just wonderfully full. You know, the human condition takes on many, 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 many forms and not always good. And I think an awful lot of people have the capacity for bad in them. They just don't go there. And our playwrights, our classic playwrights, know this and have written wonderful, wonderful characters for us to play.
You're a Christian lady. I've seen you described as a devout Christian.
I think devout is over-egging it. I have a belief.
So I wonder, does this business of involving yourself in the dark side of theatre even not go against the grain of Christianity?
Goodness, no. Because Jesus fully understood weakness and he understood evil as well. No, I think I'm here as an actress to examine and to demonstrate the breadth of the human condition given a good script.
That's the basis.
Yes.
How do you tell a good script? It's only in words written in front of you. What leaps out from the page and says to you, I want that part?
Well, if you read a lot, which I do, I mean, not necessarily plays, but books I've read all my life prodigiously, then I think you do know good writing from bad.
Did you ever get it horribly wrong?
Yes, I've done one. one really bad play.
You once wrote a book called No Turn on Stone about bad theatre reviews.
Yeah, well, it was more than that. I co-wrote it with a friend of mine. I did a lot of research into the history of the theatre, and that, indeed, Thespis, got the first bad notice. Everybody's had bad notices. I wrote it hoping that it would be published in order to give hope and encouragement to young thespians.
So I assume in your career you must have had...
Oh, lousy.
At least one.
Oh, yes.
Any you'd like to share?
Oh, yes. This was a big mistake. We all make them. I happened to do a nude scene in Abelard and Eloise. You see, played another nun. I played a lot of nuns. Yeah. And this was in America.
You don't get any nude nuns on the stage.
No, this was Abelard and Eloise, and this was to express, the carnal side of their relationship. Deeply uncomfortable. I mean, just don't do it if anybody's contemplating it. It's very chilly. And I got this notice from this perfectly awful man called John Simon, famous for handing out bad notices, particularly to women. And he wrote, apropos of my nude scene, Diana Rigg is built like a brick mausoleum with insufficient flying buttresses.
The blackguard. And he wasn't even within punching distance.
No, he wasn't. No. But I think somebody else got a bad notice from him and tipped a plate of spaghetti bolognese over him, I'm delighted to say.
What is it like when you get a notice like that?
Well, it's horrible, because what can you do about your body, which he finds deficient? Nobody else had found it deficient, I may say. But anyway, it was funny, wasn't it? And I incorporated it in the book. Of course I did.
2017, not so good health-wise. You had problems. You had some surgery, didn't you?
I had a heart operation. Yeah, and I had fibrillation, which is when your heart flutters. And they go in through your groin to reach your heart. And
seems a long way round.
I got into a taxi, and taxi drivers in London, because I've been around so long, they kind of know me. So this sweet taxi, how are you, Diane? So I said, right, I'm fine, I just had this heart operation, and they, in order to reach your heart, they go through your groin. And there was a pause, and he said, they haven't done the knowledge, have they? Isn't that brilliant? Oh. So anyway, I died on the table. I didn't know that until I came out. And the nurse quite blithely said to me, oh, you might find a bit of a burn mark on your chest. That's when we brought you back.
For a curtain call.
Well, I think Big G saw this old bag coming up, and he said, nah, send her down for a bit longer.
But it put you off the fags, though, didn't it?
I wasn't on the fags.
Oh, I had heard you were a smoker.
Oh, God, no, I've been off the fags for years.
Really?
Yes. The wine, definitely I'm on it, yes. But not the fags.
When you were playing in Victoria, rumour had it that you were on a bottle of Prosecco a day.
I know, it's too ridiculous. And not only that, but do you remember there was a series of articles, A Day in the Life of, and I did A Day in the Life of, and they had me on one bottle of red wine a day. No, no. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking in a pretty cogent fashion to you if I was on that.
Did you enjoy that? You would have enjoyed dressing up, if nothing else, in that series.
I loved that, yes. Yeah. No, that was nice. That was fun.
Do you like dressing up for parts? Do you like?
But I don't like the corset bit.
Do they still make you wear those things?
Well, they try to, but at my age, I say, forget it. I'm not interested in having a waist.
Right, you didn't have to wear any corsets in Game of Thrones, though.
No, but I had, this sort of huge stuff on my hair and head and everything.
Another dark character, this Queen of Thorns, Lady Ornella Tyrell.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy playing that part?
I did. It was lovely. It was meaty part. Very good. And on my day off, I'd wander around Belfast. I went to the museum. I saw the only mummified cat in your museum. Did you know you'd got a mummified cat?
Actually, I did. Yeah.
I was hoping to surprise you.
I know I'm full of ridiculously useless knowledge like that. Don't ask me what I had for breakfast, but I can tell you about the cat. Let me into a secret. Had you seen Game of Thrones before you were in it, and have you seen it since you left it?
No.
Neither?
No.
Why is that?
Well, I just don't watch myself, and I'm not terribly interested in series. I love documentaries on the television and the odd film, but the series are a bit like the Sunday newspapers. If you haven't caught up with them, they start piling up, and then you've got to catch up, and you feel sort of slightly bullied. So I don't get into them.
Well, the thing to do these days is to binge on it. That's what
No,
they
I
call
don't
it,
do
isn't it?
that.
You don't?
No, I don't binge on cigarettes or booze.
But you do go to the theatre, you've told me.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Are you a critic yourself? Are you hard
Yeah,
to please?
I don't go to criticise. I go to admire. I see no point. I really go determined to enjoy myself. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Working?
Not really. Still looking for a proper job.
Proper job, yeah. It's probably a good idea. And, what are you up to today, whilst my daughter works and I look after Stanley?
Metal detecting.
Beg your pardon?
Metal detecting.
Talking of enjoying, it was only a small part, but I did enjoy your input into the Detectorists.
Oh, that was fun, wasn't
which
it?
you shared with your daughter,
Yes.
Rachel. Yes.
No, Rachel got me the job.
Beautiful series.
Isn't it heaven?
It was such a lovely, laid-back,
Yes.
gentle, and it was so watchable.
Yeah, and that what I love about it is it captured, first of all, it paid tribute to two things which are really important. One was the English countryside, and the other was the wonderfully sweetly and very gently eccentric people that live in the countryside. That's a generalisation, of course, but just so dear.
And such a gently snooty mother-in-law for me.
Oh, yes, yes.
You must have had fun playing that
I
role.
loved it, absolutely loved it.
Do you discuss your parts, the parts that are offered to you, scripts that come through your letterbox with your daughter, with Rachel?
No, neither of us do. We tell each other what we're doing, but she doesn't ask for my advice very often, and I don't ask for hers. I mean, she's now a highly talented and lauded young actress. I'm thrilled and proud for her.
Did you encourage her along that path or discourage her?
No, not at all. Both her father and I said, it's sort of a bit obvious, so go to uni first, which is what she did. And then she joined the National Youth Theatre, which is a brilliant way of getting into the theatre because they make you work at every level. You know, she was stage management and playing parts, and it's a brilliant organisation.
And as well as being a fine actor herself, Rachel, she has given you a little grandson.
Yes, Jack.
He is the light of your life, I'm sure.
He is adorable. Yes, somebody said something so charming to me the other day. He was a taxi driver, and I always sit up front because I like talking to them and finding out about their lives. And he said, my grandchildren, he said, you know what they are for us when we get to this age? They are our toys. And they are, because you find the child in yourself all over again. I get incredibly childish with Jack, and we make each other laugh, and we play stupid games during meal times. And yeah, it's just heaven.
Will he be an actor?
I don't know. He unscrews everything in the house. I think he could be an engineer of some kind.
Dame Diana, sadly our weekend together is going to have to come to a close, but I suppose I'll have to ask you the obligatory final question. What have you left to do that you haven't already done?
I haven't been up the Amazon. I rather want to go up the Amazon. I want to go to Manaus. I want to visit that opera house. I'd love to go see that. There's so much of the world I haven't yet seen.
Dame Diana Rigg, I'm not sure whether you're pulling my leg or not.
I'm
but
not.
I don't
Your jaw dropped.
Yes. I expect you to say something. I'd like to play Hamlet's auntie or something,
no.
but no. You want to go up the Amazon?
Yes, I do.
You probably will. Dame Diana, thank you very much.
My pleasure.